Good morning. Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the March 5th, 2019 regular meeting to order with all board members present except Mr. Barrera, who is on his way. And with that, I would like for us to stand. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like a motion to adopt today's agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have the motion on the floor from Mr. Beiser and Dr. Evans. Please vote. That passes 4-0 with one absence. Today's meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the Board Trustees that is conducted in public, and board members will not engage in a dialogue with members of the audience. The opportunity for members of the public to provide input to the board on non-agenda matters and items on the agenda is through the submittal of a public testimony request. The time periods for speakers on each item are set by the board as described in the board's bylaws and will be announced to the members of the public as each agenda item comes up for discussion by the board. In an effort to better serve the public and respect the environment, we are moving away from paper forms to electronic forms for public testimony. Please be patient during our transition as we are still perfecting this new process. If you wish to address the board on any of the agenda items before the board today, or on a subject that is not on today's agenda, and your name is not on the speaker list printed on blue paper located at both entrances to the auditorium, and you have not already submitted a request for public testimony, please complete the electronic form. For your convenience, computers are available adjacent to the receptionist desk in the lobby, and a laptop is on the table in the back of the auditorium. Requests are automatically time-stamped and must be submitted prior to the beginning of the discussion on an item. If you need assistance completing or submitting the form, please see board services staff at the laptop in the back of the auditorium. Speakers on agenda items will be called on to speak during the discussion of the agenda item. All public testimony on non-agenda matters will be heard at the end of the meeting. A Spanish interpreter is available and is seated at the media table to my left. Please speak with her directly if you need assistance. I would like a motion to adopt the board consent agenda items C1, C2.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any requests for?
Yes, you have speakers on C2. There are 6, I believe.
Okay, and none on C1?
None on C1.
Okay. We have the motion on the floor for C1. You want to revise that, John?
Okay. I move that we approve. Well, we can still have the same
Consent.
motion.
Okay.
The same motion for both.
Okay, consent. All right. All in favor of that motion?
We have the speakers first.
I wanted to do it separately.
Oh, you want it separately? Okay.
Yes.
I revise the motion, move for approval of item C1.
Second.
Okay. Please vote on that.
Okay.
That's 4-0. Now, let's hear the speakers on C2.
I move approval of item C2, Gompers Academy.
Second.
Okay, and we have speakers.
Yes, we have Teresa Rodriguez, Eduardo Velasco, Jessica Chapman, Mary Davis, and Eswina Garcia. If any of those folks are here, you can come forward.
Please come forward, and these are all on one side, so the total of 10 minutes.
It's also Celio Garat.
Okay. I would ask all of those folks whose names were called to come forward. You have 10 minutes to speak total, and divide it up however you want to.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Jessica Chapman, and I have been teaching at Gompers for 6 years. I am asking that you look at our numbers in making your decision, but pay even more attention to the hearts behind them. Working at GPA is truly a labor of love. When I decided to be a teacher, it was for the love of education and its transformative power. Now, GPA has shown me my love is for justice and equity. I am reminded every day as I enter the gates of the student in 2004 who asked this board, "Don't we deserve good things?" The answer continues to be a resounding yes. I see it in the eyes of every one of my students on a daily basis. With Students First is not lip service at GPA. I see it from director when he becomes a father figure for a student without one, or an instructional leader to a new teacher or an old veteran like me. I see it from Miss Maples when she mobilizes her team to support a student who is depressed, or is relentless in fighting for services for our kids. I see it in Miss Franceschi when she translates to a parent in a loving, kind, but confident voice that their child needs extra help and that we will figure it out together. The leadership at GPA should be set forth as the example. I have been on the receiving end of unsupportive administration, so I am grateful that GPA doesn't have administration. We have leadership. People who I can look to, go to for non-judgmental advice as well as for a model to be copied. People who are more than willing to do the little as well as the large tasks in support of our mission with Students First. They model picking up a piece of trash because our students deserve a clean campus. They model saying, "Hi, how are you?" to a student before telling her to tuck in her shirt. They model home visits, parent meetings, tough love, and so much more. For the first time in my 20-plus years in education, I have mentors, people I aspire to be. So I ask you today, please allow my mentors and the staff at GPA to continue to serve our community for another 5 years without revision to the charter, and with the assurance that the current leadership is unhindered for the duration of the charter. Our founders that are on loan from the district have not finished what they set out to do. We have too much work to do, too many students' lives to change, too many families to inspire to greatness, to get entangled in bureaucracy. With Students First, yesterday, today, and always. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Teresa Rodriguez, and I am a proud parent of 2 boys that currently go to Gompers, a 7th grade and 11th grader, who are doing awesome. My son has taken advanced European history. He's also taken advanced placement chemistry. And what I want to say is my niece would have never been able to graduate valedictorian with a 4.67 and gotten a full scholarship to UCSD if it weren't for the staff and the culture at Gompers. We are a Gompers family. I love Gompers. I love the culture, and please keep it a charter. We really need it. Thank you.
So, good evening, board members, GPA staff, and all others. I am Eduardo Alexandro Velasco, a student at Gompers Prep. I support the desire for Gompers to remain charter. I want this to occur because as Gompers is an amazing representation of a good school. Well, I feel our school performs academically well. As a charter, it also offers extracurricular activities that foster a university mindset. It also has many other activities that help us to enter the universities that we desire. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Azucena Garcia. I'm a resident of Choya's View. I've been there for 21 years. I'm also a proud teacher at Gompers Preparatory Academy. I've been at the school for almost 6 years, and this is my 4th year teaching there. And the teachers at Gompers are really excited that our school got recognized as a union earlier this year. We're looking forward to sitting down with GPA to bargain our first contract, and we're here today to urge you to please renew our charter. We love our school, and we want to continue, all of us, to put our students first. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you. That's it for speakers. Okay.
Given additional new information, in light of this additional information and my own personal recollection of comments and discussions from March 9th, 2010, I would like to rescind my second on the motion to renew the charter with the modifications number 1 and 2. I would support a motion to renew the charter with 1 and 2 stricken.
Okay, so the motion, John,
Currently have
as
a
a giver, do you?
Well, I think what would be helpful would be a presentation by Deirdre about these 2 items, 1 and 2, so we know what we're referring to.
Real quick, just for the public's understanding, is that the staff has recommended renewing the charter for 5 more years, but there are 5 clarifications or points of change. It's my understanding, well, I'd like to clarify my remarks. It's my understanding that there's no clarification or response on 3, 4, 5, and 6, but there is some doubt as to the first 2 conditions of the renewal. And looking at the additional information I've just received, I have to personally agree that condition number 2 is wrong. I was here March 9th, 2010. It was the day after my birthday. I remember we talked about this before the meeting. I've talked about it with Superintendent Koba, and I remember this coming up at that board meeting, that the couple of on-loan employees, that condition would allow to be continued. So I know for fact that that's not true. And in terms of clarification number 1, I don't believe that that's necessary under Ed Code, and I believe that if it's not broke, we don't have to implement a fix. So I just wanted to clarify my remarks.
Deirdre, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So Gompers is here for action on their renewal petition requesting another 5 years. There were 6 clarifications that we were requesting to the charter petition. As has been stated and clarified, Gompers agreed to numbers 3 through 6, so there doesn't seem to be any question on those. Clarifications 1 and 2 are the points where there was some disagreement. For the district, looking at clarification number 1 to revise the SELPA affiliation section, we are taking out the word "not" in the last sentence so that it does require the charter school to come to us if they change their LEA status or SELPA membership. This is something that all the other charter schools have agreed to. It's a common practice. We have made this revision in the majority of the charters that have come through for renewal this year and previously. Our thoughts on this are, while there may be a Ed Code provision that states that the school shall be permitted to participate in an approved SELPA. This is a group of students and a process that we feel our board needs to have some review of. We are the oversight entity in the end. We are responsible for ensuring that the school is compliant with all state, federal, all statutes. That falls on us. And so if they are going to propose changing their SELPA affiliation, we believe that this board needs to be made aware of that and review that process to make sure that it is an acceptable SELPA, that it meets the criteria as set forth And the other piece of it is within their charter, in multiple places in the special ed section, they refer specifically to El Dorado Charter SELPA, which is what they are currently with and have been for a number of years. And so we want to, if they are going to change their SELPA, we want that document to be revised so that the public is aware that they have changed that SELPA. It shouldn't be just a letter to the district as the authorizer saying we're changing it. We believe they need to go in and revise that section so that members of the public can see that we have changed our SELPA affiliation, that we are no longer with El Dorado, we're going to whatever other SELPA they elect.
So to clarify on that, for example, we see from time to time charter revisions, sometimes has to do with a change of location and other things like that. So would this fall into that category, that if the school were to change SELPA, that they would petition a revision to the charter, which would come before the board? I mean, I think I can't remember any cases where they haven't been approved in general, but.
Yeah, we have several times over the past several years brought to you agreements memorializing that a charter school has changed its SELPA. Anytime a school enters El Dorado, we bring that to this board. We feel that SELPA, a change in your SELPA membership, is a material revision. And there are other things in statute that, yes, you are permitted to do, but we still feel you have an obligation to tell your authorizer, since the authorizer is responsible for fulfilling the oversight duties and making sure that laws and statutes are complied with.
So this is more than just esoteric. It's, you feel like it's material. And beyond that, they've not made any changes in the past, is what you're saying, without letting us know.
No, I believe they've been with El Dorado since, I want to say 2009, and they haven't notified us that they intend to change SELPAs. This would be what I would consider to be a minimal burden on a charter school to come before us with a revision to say, I'm changing my SELPA, especially if it's a well-known, well-regarded, recognized SELPA.
Because your argument is that the document is no longer accurate if they make that change.
Correct. If they switched, like for instance, if they changed to Desert Mountain SELPA, just did it on their own and they didn't change it within the charter petition, anybody who looks at that petition, including the CDE, the State Board of Ed, local community members, families, they will have the wrong information in it if we don't go through and revise the charter.
I have a couple questions. First of all, how long have they been with their current SELPA?
I believe since 2009, so it's
2009. So for 10 years, they've had their same SELPA, right? Have you received any indication or communication that they're considering changing SELPA?
No.
So, so then why are you suggesting that we make this a requirement to renew their charter if they've never changed SELPA in 10 years and there's absolutely zero indication that they are even thinking about changing SELPA? Why would you require this then?
In the chance that they do change their SELPA, they could opt to do that with a 1-year notice to their current SELPA. So they can, within this 5-year period, change their SELPA, and without this clause being revised to say it'll be a material revision reviewed by our board, the old information would in theory remain in the charter. So it's a precautionary measure in case they do change their SELPA. It would require them to present it to this board for review. And not that I think that this board would deny it, but we think it's important from a transparency viewpoint and from an accuracy viewpoint. And when we balance that with what's the burden to the school of presenting that revision to us, we feel it's an important safeguard.
And what's your comments about their response that Education Code or California state law, section 47641, the state law doesn't allow us the right, as you would like to articulate, to deny any modifications to SELPA as long as the SELPA is state approved?
I guess I see this as it's not necessarily a limitation of it will always be a you can't do it. It's more of a precaution of we need to be transparent and informative with these families and with your authorizer and with the folks at the state level who are reviewing these charter petitions. We acknowledge that they have a right to seek participation in another SELPA. There are some criterias as to what kind of SELPA you can enter, so we would want to view it and make sure that it's an approved type of SELPA. And like I said earlier, that they have a strong reputation and can really support this school and these families. As you are all aware, it's a vulnerable student group, and we want to make sure that that everything is being done
in the
to enforce the laws.
So you raise a good point, that it is a vulnerable group of students. How have they performed at serving that vulnerable group of students in the last 10 years?
So there is some, yeah, they've made progress in all of their subgroups.
So then
Let me
why
find
would
the
we
table.
doubt, I mean, if it's not broke, why are we trying to find a remedy to fix it? They've obviously done a phenomenal job with this vulnerable group of students.
Yeah, I would agree that they have made increases, and I would also state that other schools as well have done that. They've made increases with their student groups, but as an authorizer responsible for ensuring compliance, we think it's important that they tell us and this board be able to review what they're going to change when it's a material term like that.
So let's,
So what you're saying is it's a material change, and this is, this requirement is what you have for all charters? All
of
charters
them.
have the same requirement to declare what their SELPA is, and if there's a change in the SELPA, as a matter of practice?
Yes, and we have made this clarification in multiple charters over the last 2 to 3 years. I
So it's
believe I even made the
consistent for
same
every
change
charter, it's
in
not
Holly
different.
Drive's charter that was approved just earlier tonight. Yeah, this is not a specific to Gompers. This is a in us trying to fulfill our oversight duties to the best of our abilities. We want to make sure that we are aware of all of the changes, that this board is aware of those changes, and that we can really enforce compliance.
can we ask the leadership at Gompers if there has been any, how's their relationship with your current SELPA, and have you thought about or explored the idea of changing SELPAs? Because that would make it kind of moot.
Hi, I'm Jane Liverson, one of
Hi,
the
Jane.
assistant directors, and I oversee special ed, and we have a wonderful relationship with El Dorado, and we don't have any intention of leaving them at this time.
So why would you oppose this change then?
Primarily, our opposition was more trying to figure out the why behind it from you guys, understanding that there isn't any law requiring us to, and as was stated by Deirdre, it is a long process to change a SELPA. You have to share with them a year in advance, and obviously we would communicate completely with you, and we believe that by just notifying you, that would fulfill our obligation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But we're happy to oblige regardless.
Dr.
Okay,
Mike.
okay.
I don't see this as much of a program issue as it is an oversight issue. And then because Gompers is doing terrific work, they have reduced the number, significantly, the number of unexcused absences. Their school attendance is high. I think it's 96%, if I recall correctly. Their graduation rate, I believe, is 100%. And their progress that they're making in mathematics is incredible. They're producing, their growth is 112% over what it was 4 years ago. In all of their groups, social economic disadvantage, 112% growth. In Hispanic is 105% growth. And in English learning, they've increased by 262%. And in students with disabilities, 168%. With their African American students, it's 400%. So they are making great progress. I don't think this is really an issue about the program. What I do see, though, it really is an issue about providing appropriate oversight. And it's also bringing Gompers into alignment with the other charters that we have authorized. And so it's about what's not so much what is broken. I think it's a matter of being cautious about if there was a change. All this asks is that they come before the board and make this a material revision. And so it's about transparency and accuracy. And for those reasons, I support the first clarification.
Let's move
Okay.
to
All
the
right.
second.
After deliberating on clarification number 1, I believe that I could support clarification number 1.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to 2.
Yeah.
Number 2 is revisions to the.
Is your microphone on?
Oh, I apologize, I turned it off. Thank you. So clarification 2 is in regards to the employee leave and return rights section. We are requesting revisions for a few reasons to clarify what our understanding of the district's interpretation of the current status for the on-loan agreements. We believe that these revisions clarify the actual status in that it notes that there are currently 5 employees at Gompers that are on loan from the district, that they are district employees, and that the on-loan agreements for the employees are renewed on an annual basis by the district. We reviewed multiple documents. We went through and watched the videos and reviewed the minutes from the March 9th meeting. We couldn't find a reference to these will go on while the employees remain employed, and that hasn't been our understanding of how these agreements work. Our understanding is that they are annual agreements. Each employee receives a new agreement every year, and that these are done essentially at the district's discretion since these are our employees. We also cleaned up some of the language. We didn't think it was appropriate in this section to reference other charter schools. Sometimes it's included often in the comparison tables that we do for academics, as that's required by Ed Code. But to include other charter schools in this section, we wanted to remove references to those. We also removed some of the language that applies to the nonprofit corporation charter schools, as that's outdated language. All of our charter schools are currently now operated as or by nonprofit public benefit corporations. So that was old language to be revised. We clarified the return rights, that it's essentially limited to what was listed in the annual personnel agreement. So each agreement has a title, and that's the position that if you opted to return to the district, that's the job title that you would be, category that you would be entitled to return to. And then we cleaned up some of the language regarding, they had some references in here to leave terms. All of these employees are active employees on loan, so leave is the incorrect term, so we cleaned that up. And then we removed reference to the probationary district employees, as there are none. So that was also a little outdated. And so that's the rationale for why we are requesting the revisions, because we feel it reflects the district's understanding of the process and what those on-loan agreements are.
I have a question for the general counsel. I'm just wondering, does the board have a legal right for sort of an in perpetuity agreement? I mean, can a current board bind all future boards, or how does that work?
Previous board could not take action that would preclude the current board or a future board from reconsidering an item. So in other words, a board could adopt a policy that goes on until a second board decides to change it. And you have the right to do that.
So is there any such thing as, I'm just calling an in perpetuity agreement?
No, not really.
That doesn't exist? Okay.
So it would seem, but it's the renewal process that is where we address the issue on a regular and timely basis. And at this point, the board is considering the renewal of Gompers. And then with this second agreement, the second clarification, it is to bring Gompers to edit the previous agreement to reflect the actual status of what has been past practice. And the past practice, as I understand, has been that each year the renewal is being considered, and that's exactly what this change in the renewal clarification. That's what the clarification of the renewal is all about, is just codifying what has been past practice and what has been the understanding of the district.
So my understanding is that each year, the particular few employees at Gompers would have the right to return to the district, and that's renewed each year, and so they could make a choice about coming back or not coming back. I don't know that that's even happened.
Correct.
But from my understanding is that there's no way to guarantee that it goes on from the general counsel that it goes on in perpetuity.
Yes, and that is also the staff's understanding, and that's what we are attempting to reflect in this, in that it's on a year-to-year basis, each year having its own separate agreement. And you are correct, within here, there's some language that the on-loan employees, if they wish to return to the district, would have to notify by March 1st.
So if a future board decided that they didn't want to continue with the on-loan agreement, they would have to, at that particular year, they would have to notify the employee. The employee would have a choice, even at that future point, of saying, I'm coming back to the district, or I'm going to stay with Gompers.
Correct.
It wouldn't just be suddenly disappear.
Correct. So as an example, if we gave Gompers a one-year notice, so I'm just going to make up dates and examples here.
Yeah.
So on July 1, July 1, 2019, we gave them notice that the 1920 agreements would be the final year for the agreement. So as of June 30, 2020, it would end. In that process, then the on-loan employee would then have the opportunity to either notify the district that they wish to return, and they would be subject to those return rights that we have in here and also in our collective bargaining agreements, or they could opt to remain at Gompers and become a Gompers employee. So Gompers would hire them as opposed to them being on loan.
So it's sort of the reverse of the SELPA thing, which Gompers evidently doesn't have any intention of changing the SELPA, but they need to notify. In this case, we haven't ever changed that agreement about the employees being able to return, but we can't guarantee what would happen in the future. There's no way we can legislate that. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But
what I'm saying is we're not making any change now. We're not. Correct. We're not ending the agreement or anything like that.
Correct. That's an excellent clarification.
Right.
This is not saying anywhere that those on-loan agreements are ending. This is trying to memorialize what our understanding of them and clarify it, that it is that it's an annual agreement that's done each year, and it's done at the district's discretion. So the district, this is trying to indicate that the district is not under an obligation to keep these on-loan employees and keep them at Gompers. The way it's written with some of the language where it says they will continue while employed at GPA, or that they will continue for as long as the employee chose to work on loan. For us, that didn't memorialize what our actual understanding of it was, because this is these are district employees, and they could be subject to things that happen at the district that could affect them whether or not they wanted to remain on loan. So we're trying to clarify it as best we can, but it is not saying that these are ending.
Okay, so since the motion I made, the second was withdrawn, I'll make another motion. And basically just to say, obviously Gompers is one of our prime charter schools, and for me, part of all the great work that we see in all this that's listed here statistically, but also just the fact that it really fits our model of neighborhood schools. It's serving the direct community in which it exists. It's not just some sort of random collection of students, and it really has made a great improvement to the neighborhood as part of the neighborhood. So on that basis, I move for approval of the renewal of the charter petition of Gompers Preparatory Academy with all the recommendations from staff.
Okay, before we move there, Deirdre, a couple of things. We're talking about 5 employees, right?
That is correct, 5 employees.
Now, this will necessitate our staff sending out annual notices to them by March 15th.
That piece, I don't exactly know. I think that's more of an HR question. What this does is put into writing that it is an annual process, that they are on-loan employees, and that every year there is a new agreement. But I don't have information related to the process as it, and I know that they would not be exempted from any layoff and/or bumping process by virtue of being an on-loan employee. But beyond that, I don't have specifics.
I did HR for a few years, so I know.
That made a motion.
Well, Dr.
I'll second.
Okay.
You second it. Okay, did you have any discussion?
I understand.
I have, as we did with the first clarification, we asked a spokesperson from Gompers to respond. I was wondering if we could do that this time as well, so we have a Gompers response to clarification number 2.
Good evening, trustees and Superintendent Martin. My name is Jenny Parsons. I'm the Chief Business Officer at Gompers Preparatory Academy. We want to make sure that you all understand how important these 5 on-loan employees are. Many of them founders of our school. They're pivotal to the success of our school, continuing its success. And we know you don't have to, but we're respectfully requesting as a good faith gesture that you'll allow them to continue to be on loan every year that they want to stay on loan at our school. It's a relationship that has been in existence since the beginning of the charter. On that day, March 9th, 2010, we came down here to try to get board action, and in closed session, we were given a verbal commitment from that board to our board chairman, Mr. Stepp, not to worry about the on-loan employees anymore. As long as they wanted to continue to be on loan at this school, where they were sent to change the school, they would have that option. We've had, on an annual basis, in fact, last year, kind of a last-minute notice that they wouldn't have that available to them. We want to let these veterans, let these people that have been through combat really allow them to continue to do that work without worry that the next year they're going to have to make that decision. They've put students first for this entire time, and we don't want to have to ask them to put themselves before students and to make that really tough choice. So we're asking you to do whatever's in your legal power to allow those on-loan agreements to be available to those 5 staff members for the life of the charter.
Any more? Thank you. Thank you. Any more discussion from here?
Well, I do want to echo her sentiments. I think that, I remember when Gompers was first forming the charter. I mean, this was a school where teachers were quitting before 10 a.m. every day. Students were throwing desks and chairs out the window. They did not have students that felt that they could graduate from high school, let alone go on to college. And so then this school district formed the charter to help give those kids hope again. And a part of that creation was the idea that the district at the time, I wasn't a trustee on the board then, I don't think any of us were. The district took some very skilled staff members and asked them to take charge of this school and turn it around. We have had 100% graduation rate, 100% college admission rates. It is a school where children are succeeding and learning and thriving. And I believe that this one small ask is worth continuing our investment in these children at the school. I am more than willing to go ahead and agree with Article 1, the clarification 1, clarification 3, 4, 5, and 6. But I would hope that my colleagues on the Board of Education would at least consider this. And as Deidre had mentioned, that this does not end the on-loan agreement, but if it doesn't end the on-loan agreement, then why do we feel it necessary to change their charter to allow for us to end it next year? So I would hope, but in terms of my perspective on this school before us, is I want to do everything I can to allow this school and these children to continue. And I wholeheartedly support the renewal of the charter for another 5 years. I want to support the charter because the students really need this institution. And I'll be honest with you, I also want to support the teachers who just voted to form a union. I want to support the union, the staff, the teachers, the students, and I also want to support and honor our commitment made many, many years ago to these 5 on-loan employees. So I don't know if there is any other board member that is interested in protecting that commitment to these 5 employees, or if you have a comment as to why are you supporting the current motion on the floor, to help me understand a little bit more about this issue on clarification number 2.
Richard.
Yeah, no, so first of all, I think it sounds like unanimous agreement on this board, and I share that agreement about the outstanding performance of Gompers, and I think it's I certainly am going to vote to renew the charter. I think Gompers continues to do great work. I actually also congratulate the entire Gompers community for moving forward with an issue, with the unionization of the teachers and the negotiations that could have been divisive, and it seems like the community is in a place that it's moving forward in a way that's going to bring the community together. So I congratulate you on that. I think on this issue, first of all, I was on the board on March 9th, 2010, and the discussion that we were having was there was a sense and a recommendation coming forward from the staff that the continuation of on-loan agreements, doing new on-loan agreements, was something that didn't make a lot of sense for the district moving forward. It was something that created problems with human resources, and so our discussion and our decision as a board was to no longer move forward with new on-loan agreements, but to recognize that we had a few teachers, including the teachers at Gompers, that should be grandfathered in. We didn't want to change their status. That was the discussion. There was no commitment, and there cannot be a commitment of this board to effectively, in perpetuity or for the life of the charter, grant the on-loan status. That's something that the Board of Education is going to have to consider, moving forward. And, whoever is on the board at any given time has the right to make that decision. So we can't bind future board members, to this commitment. It's certainly, I think, all of our understanding and intention, as we have every year, to renew the on-loan agreement if that's the wish of the Gompers employees. But it's a process that should happen every year. And so I think staff is actually clarifying the existing policy and procedure. I don't think this is changing anything. I think it's clarifying what's been in place. So I think that the staff recommendation on this is appropriate. But the bigger picture is, I think we're all in support of renewing the Gompers charter.
And from my perspective, because I did spend 17 years in HR here in city schools, sending out notices and waiting for responses back from folk, if you're talking about annual, then there will need to be an activated letter every year that's sent out. And I don't have a problem with folks continuing that agreement, because folks don't know it out there, but a lot of times positions are held up because you're waiting for folks to get letters back in saying, I'm going to be out again. So you don't need to lay somebody else off, because this position, we don't have to worry about it. This person is still going to be on loan or wherever they're going to be. So as long as we're just codifying that kind of request, the letter goes out automatically, you send it back, yes, I'm going to be out, you're off the table, we don't worry about you. But otherwise, we have to hold positions open for folks to recognize they may decide to come back. So you get that notice, send it back, I'm out again, and you just stay on loan until. But the letter does need to go out. So with that, I vote for this.
Okay.
Let's vote. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. And I would like for us to pause here and get a report on closed session from our general counsel.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. The board voted 3-1 with Mr. Barrera absent and Mr. Beiser voting no to release all temporary certificated employees and issue March 15th notices to central office administrators and vice principals.
Thank you. And with that, we move down to item D1. We will now hear item D1. We're considering renewal of charter petition for the Learning Choice Academy. Please present the item, Superintendent.
You want me to wait a minute?
My hearing is bad today.
Sure, it's about 10 minutes. What's that?
She's presents it first. She's first.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Please present the item.
Thank you. Item D1 is a public, no?
Thank you for exiting quietly as we continue. Thank you for your cooperation. Ms. Walsh.
All right, thank you. Item D1 is the public hearing to consider renewal of the charter petition for the Learning Choice Academy. The school is seeking renewal of its charter for a 5-year term beginning July 1, 2019. Table 1 in the packet summarizes the previous charter renewals. The school currently serves grades K through 12 at 3 non-district sites, 2 of them within San Diego Unified boundaries and 1 in an adjacent county. They are located in the Scripps Ranch area, Kearney, and then the adjacent county is in Temecula. Table 2 provides an overview of TLC. Table 3 summarizes their projected enrollment for the next 5 years. They have a governing board comprised of 5 governing members, as summarized in Table 4. The enrollment for 2017-18 consisted mostly of students from outside of the district, and that is due to 3 of the 4 schools in 27-18 being outside of San Diego Unified boundaries. And then we will update the numbers, the enrollment numbers in the action item. After this board item went public, the school notified us that there were some errors in the enrollment figures, so we will update those and make sure that they are accurate for the action item that will come before you in April.
Thank you. We have speakers,
Yes, you have 11 speakers. It looks like they're already lined up.
and they're all pro, so 10 minutes.
So 10 minutes total for all. It looks like Debbie Gooding, Michelle Hellerud, Katie Leonard, Reggie Estrella.
Just call all of them, and then you have 10 minutes total. You can divide it up as you wish.
Diva Edelman, Cyrus Parson, Kevin White, Felicia LaJeunesse, Laura Moreno, Diva Edelman, and Michael LaJeunesse.
Hi, good evening, Board President Whitehurst Payne and board members and Superintendent Cindy Martin. My name's Debbie Gooding. I'm the Executive Director of TLC. We've been chartered with San Diego Unified since 2004, and we're proud of our longstanding relationship with the district. Can I have a stand of our support of all of our families and our teachers and staff here tonight? I'm going to give the rest of my time up for my parents and students to speak about our amazing school and the things they have to share.
Good evening, trustees and President Sharon Whitehurst Payne and Superintendent Martin. My name is Michelle Hellerud. I am a board member at TLC, and I'm also a parent. I've had children at the school since about 2007. I have 2 daughters. Both of them have been there intermittently through their academic careers. My oldest daughter was there for part of elementary school and middle school. She went on to have a wonderful academic career at Torrey Pines High School, and she's now at Miracosta College with a 3.41 GPA. And she learned all her good study skills at TLC. She had wonderful teachers who actually cared about her. We had wonderful support, excellent curriculum. My younger daughter is currently there in middle school, and I just can't say enough about the support we get at the school, how great the staff is, how much they care about the kids. I believe in choice. Regular school isn't for every kid all the time. My youngest daughter had a knee injury. It made going to 7th grade normal school really difficult. TLC homeschool's been great, a bonding experience for her and I, and she's getting a great education. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Katie Leonard, and I've been the Resource Center Administrator here at TLC Scripps Ranch while I've been working at TLC for the past 8 years. Through my experience here at TLC, it's evident how our personalized learning model truly benefits students, parents, and teachers in helping to facilitate students on their educational journeys. Parents have the opportunity to have an integral role in their child's education, working directly alongside our teachers and supporting children in finding their ambitions and achieving them. Our teachers have various opportunities to work directly alongside students and show them exactly how much they care, whether it's facilitating extracurricular activities, teaching core content areas, or facilitating students on their entire educational path from elementary school all the way to high school. Our students immediately from their first day of enrollment pick up on how much our teachers truly care about their education. At the end of the day, our teachers are all here for the students, and our students achieve remarkable things from that unparalleled support. We've had students from all different types of backgrounds, whether they're disadvantaged and at risk, or if they're high achieving and they're using this model to take their learning to a new level. They've found unparalleled support that have truly helped them to achieve their dreams.
Hello, my name is Reggie Estrella, and I am a sophomore who has been at the Learning Choice Academy since 1st grade. I started off at the La Mesa site, but moved to Scripps Ranch in the 2nd grade. Since TLC has 4 different locations, families across the San Diego area have the option to choose TLC's educational model. The various school events and field trips give me the opportunity to meet students and families from the other sites. The educational model of school choice has given me freedom with a flexible schedule and academic options to fit my ambitions. The school has taught me self-discipline and responsibility by allowing me to manage my own time, which is helping me get ready for college. TLC has also motivated me to explore education and discover my fields of interest, which has led me to find out that I am passionate about STEM and engineering. The teachers at TLC have encouraged my interests through events like the National Sea Perch Competition and by supervising my game design club. My teachers have helped me to achieve several accomplishments, including being part of a team that earned first place in the engineering notebook and presentation category of the Regional Sea Perch Challenge. My educational partner gives me options, helpful suggestions, and the motivation to help me reach my future goals. Attending Learning Choice Academy is giving me the confidence I need to thrive in college, and I'm proud to be a student there. The Learning Choice Academy is enhancing my education, preparing me for college, and encouraging me to strive for academic success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Michael Lejeunesse. I'm here on behalf of my wife, Felicia, and my ward, Orlando. I want to thank you for giving me this moment to express and share our benefit that we get from being part of the TLC educational family. You see, Orlando is in his second year at TLC. He came to us from Albuquerque, New Mexico. He lived with us on and off since he was 3 years old. He is now our ward. Prior to coming to TLC, Orlando was on a path to academic failure. He did not have the basic knowledge nor the foundation to succeed and have a bright future. His sanctuary was his room and gaming. His skill set that he brought to the TLC was very weak in math, didn't know the basics of anything that he had or was going for him. He received a B in algebra from Albuquerque, but he had no basic knowledge of math, let alone algebra. He had to start over again. He knew little of the world around him. His history of the world and his environment was very limited. His English, both oral and written, was very weak, failed 9th grade English. He barely could read at the elementary level, and communication for him was extremely difficult, both written and in oral. Now, he would sit back in the back of rooms and put his head down, and he was not very engaging. His vocabulary was very weak at best, not very engaging throughout the world. His GPA was 1 point nothing when he came to us. He was fast becoming a child left behind, while being pushed through a high school without any academic skills for the future. Now, my wife Felicia, his aunt, looked for a non-traditional school, and she found TLC. We interviewed with TLC. They were not sure that they could even help him because he was so far behind, but they took a chance on the young man. Their team, our team, TLC, had resources, caring teachers, counselors, leadership, and a nurturing atmosphere. Felicia, with her patience and guidance, Orlando with his determination to succeed, it was a great fit for our family. Now, Orlando is engaged in classroom events. He is in group discussions. He has family and friends there now. He can write papers where he couldn't even write a sentence before. He knows math now much better than he did. He has history. He's taken very good. He's now taking Spanish and doing well. He's a teacher's aide, and he helps with the younger children at TLC. Now he's involved in extracurricular activities, which he never was before.
3 minutes remaining.
Yes, ma'am.
For everybody.
He now loves going to school. He now goes every day, works hard, and every night, and his GPA is 3 point something now. He is now on a path to graduation, perhaps the only one of his 4 brothers to do so. Now he has built a foundation that he can stand upon and he can go forth with. I want to thank TLC for that partnership, and TLC is a vital asset to our community. Please continue its renewal.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Kevin White. I'm going to keep this short. I teach social science and STEM, and 8 years ago when I was hired at TLC, we were considered to be a small homeschool charter. Now we've grown into something that I consider to be one of the best personalized learning charter schools in Southern California. I've witnessed the growth that I've seen in my own classes in STEM as we continue to add on more technological components. We teach CAD, 3D printing, robotics, and everything else you can check off the list in STEM, but we do it, hopefully, I like to think, better than the rest. We're currently developing a computer science pathway to help students who just can't seem to get enough of the technology that we use in my classes. And I know it's going to be hard for me to learn as I'm not a computer programmer, but my students are willing to work with me and sometimes help me along the way. Thanks, Reggie. TLC not only produces success stories of those destined for UC schools, but also for those who've been characterized and oftentimes believe themselves that they're destined for failure. Please allow TLC to continue to empower students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dava Edelman. Our family has been with the Learning Choice Academy for the past 7 years. We joined TLC halfway through my son's kindergarten year. John had started out in a top-rated traditional school with great staff, but it wasn't a good fit for us because even though he was a typical 5-year-old boy in many ways, his academic skills were way beyond his grade level. Every day at school, he would finish his classwork quickly and then spend the rest of the day reading by himself. He didn't feel like he was part of the class, and he was losing his enthusiasm for learning. My husband Eric and I moved John to TLC, and soon he was enthusiastic and joyful once again about learning. The mix of at-home schooling and on-site instruction in a smaller class was a great fit. He was doing work that challenged him while still interacting with kids his own age. When it was time to sign our daughter Katie up for elementary school, we didn't hesitate to sign her up at TLC. Both kids are thriving academically and personally. We love being able to customize their learning while having the support of excellent teachers in a flexible environment. We look forward to many more years at this great school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Edelman. I'm a 7th grader at the Learning Choice Academy. I've attended TLC since kindergarten. I want to share with you my top 2 favorite classes at TLC. My first class is social studies. I enjoy learning about the history of the many different countries. The classes are set up in a way that they are fun, engaging, and educational all at once. The homework is also enjoyable, and it augments well what we learn in class. My second class that I like is Gateway to Technology. It's my personal favorite class. In Gateway to Technology class, we learn about different aspects of technology, such as 3D modeling, coding, and robotics. I like this class because it is entertaining and fascinating while also educating us on skills that would be very useful in today's technology-rich world. Please renew our charter so more kids can go to this great school. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Thank you very much. I would like a motion on this.
This is a public hearing.
We'll get a vote to renew next time.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm down on D2 already. Some discussion?
Yeah, I have several questions. There's 3 school sites that are involved, and I'm trying to get my head around these 3 school sites. As I understand it, the Scripps Ranch makes sense for us to be involved with because it's in our district attendance area, and it involves students, I think, primarily coming from within the San Diego Unified School District. I believe the Kearney site school is only temporarily at Kearney and will be moving to its authorized district's attendance area next year. Is that correct?
The school has, this was the first year for the site that's within our boundaries in the Kearney cluster, and so they are determining if they are going to keep that site or if they are going to relinquish that site and then have the students transfer back to their La Mesa site, which was the original site that was out of district, not compliant under Anderson, and so they moved, found this site within our boundaries, and the students moved there. So the school is looking at those students potentially moving back to La Mesa.
So in terms of our consideration, we would be making a decision on a renewal that would involve the Kearney site, which involves Kearney our students within our attendance area primarily, or do we know the enrollment breakout of these 3 schools?
I do have some enrollment breakout. There will be more updated, accurate data. So it was last year's data, actually. The La Mesa site had 318 students at it, and I don't know that all of those have transferred over to this new site within our boundaries. But we can get that, and we'll have that in the action item. We'll have precise numbers for you.
So do I understand you correctly, they actually, the La Mesa students are currently at a La Mesa site as well as a Kearney site?
No, the La Mesa site currently does not have students at it. So as part of the school's transition plans to get all of their sites compliant under Anderson and Charter School Act, they submitted a charter petition to Chula Vista Elementary School District, which became effective July 1, 2018. So that moved the Chula Vista site into a different authorizer. They have gone to Grossmont. The charter has been approved, but it hasn't gone into effect yet. It'll go into effect July 1, 2019. And so once that goes into effect, the La Mesa site that they currently still have, but they have not been allowed to have students at it, that site will then open up and they'll be able to enroll students at that site again.
Okay, and then related to the site that is in Temecula, which is in Riverside County, what can you tell me about the students there?
That is the smaller of all of their sites. It is permitted under current charter law. Non-classroom-based programs are allowed to have a single resource center, meeting place, or satellite office in an adjacent county. So this is the single site in an adjacent county that would be permitted under current Charter School Act law.
Then I'll ask one more question. I think we need to have some input here.
I was just wanting to know if you want me to help clarify.
Let me ask my last question first. So my concern is when we take a look at the number of students that are outside of the San Diego Unified School District, the number we have that is 71.3% of the students who are in these three charters are outside of our school district. So my concern has to do with local control, has to do with decision-making, has to do with meaningful parent engagement, and I guess the major question is, why are you here and not in taking this school to Temecula?
Well, so currently, as she's saying, we have 579 as our total enrollment. 315 of those students from our La Mesa site, we moved to the Kearney Mesa site. We got the charter through Grossmont School District. Majority of those students will move, and we will probably end up closing Kearney site. So then that will leave us with about 300 kids total for San Diego Unified. 70 of those kids would live outside of the district, or outside of, not even 70. There's probably about 60 kids that live in Riverside County, because some travel from Oceanside and Escondido and Fallbrook to go to Temecula, which is San Diego County still. So there is a very small percentage of kids, and it's not that we haven't looked into it, we just haven't moved forward with it yet. We've last year moved our Chula Vista, got a Chula Vista charter, got a Grossmont School District charter. We're here, and then Temecula.
So I would hope that in the month as we go through this, that we can clarify some of those and get some
yes.
And
Deidre and I have been working on that.
expectations that are kind of tied down.
Yes, that's good. Just to summarize, you have charters in Temecula, in La Mesa, and Chula Vista, and San Diego.
Yes.
And
the charter in Grossmont doesn't start until July 1st. But yes.
But it's been approved already, so we just need to know how we fit into this picture and as the most students, et cetera.
It's, I mean, the law is a little unusual. I mean, we found schools that were not the type that you're operating, that were not personalized schools, and they were sort of trying to follow the rules of the personalized schools. But I'm not sure I really understand the logic of, if you have a personalized school, you can operate another in an adjacent county, because I think that goes to Dr. McQuarrie's question of if you're operating a school in Temecula, just like if you're operating one in Scripps Ranch, you'd come to us. If you're operating one, I'm not talking about the law, but if you're operating one in Temecula, why wouldn't you have that approved by the Temecula district?
And it's not that we haven't thought of that. With the Anderson ruling, we've been slowly moving all of our charters that way. But the law does state that we are allowed one out of district, so that was one of our last ones that we were working on.
So was it just kind of simpler bureaucratically to not deal with so many different districts? Was that?
Well, back in the day, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only had one
Yeah.
budget, one LCAP, one
Yeah.
charter, one of everything. Right now I have 3 of everything sitting on their plates.
And I understand, I thought we just had a revision to your charter that the Scripps Ranch location is moving to Mira Mesa?
No, that's staying. We're gonna probably close the Kearney Mesa one, the one that's on Phyllis Place. We're temporarily renting a space from a church right now to come in compliance. It was to be in compliance with the Anderson law for closing our La Mesa site because we hadn't had a charter. We didn't have a charter yet.
Well, maybe I'm getting confused with another school. Oh, it was moving to Mira Mesa.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're similar
Okay.
to them.
Okay, that's what I get confused about. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry about that. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, so here again, going back to local control and meaningful parent engagement, I see you have 5 board members that are representing the interest of all 3 of these
Correct.
locations. And I would be interested in knowing where they live, what they call their home, and which school.
Absolutely.
As
I can
well
get that for you.
as where do you hold your meetings and how you're working to actively engage the parents in the
Yeah.
decision-making process
We
and staff.
We currently hold them in Chula Vista, and we rotate between Scripps Ranch and Chula Vista because those are our 2 charters as of right now. And then we do video for the one that we're not at. So any parent can go to that site and put input in through video. So if we're at the Scripps Ranch holding our board meeting, the parents have opportunity. They don't have to drive all the way to Scripps Ranch. They can go to the Chula Vista and put in public comment there.
And the one parent representative is from which
She's
site?
from Scripps Ranch.
Thank you.
And Salina Cunningham is a representative of South County. She is a community member. Barbara is community member for San Diego. She is a professor at Mira Mesa College. And our La Mesa representative is a teacher. And our...
Which site?
Well, it'll be our new East County, so technically she's San Diego right now. Okay. And then we have a parent who is for Chula Vista.
Maybe we can learn from you about how to do distance meetings, whatever.
We'll be happy to share.
Thank you. Hear that, staff. We'd love to hear that. Any other discussion on this?
We're looking forward to reviewing your results. Thank you.
If not, then this matter is closed. And Superintendent, you have no other items on that. So we'll close this one, and thank you all.
Thank you.
And that moves us to D2, the one that I was rushing us to get to. This is the San Diego Cooperative Charter School, and we need some action on this one. I'd like a motion, please. Just 1 minute to allow people to clear. Thank you for your quietness as you depart. Mr. Barreri moved, and a second from Dr. McQuarrie. And with that,
I have a question.
some discussion. Do we have speakers? No speakers. No speakers. Good.
I just have a question. This is not about San Diego Cooperative, but just in general. I mean, how much latitude do charter schools have in terms of, giving priority to certain types of students? Because what I had understood before was that it was just everyone was treated equally. It seemed like when we started, the charter school was started at the library, that it was open to everybody in the community. So even though we wanted it to be particularly for the people who were close by.
So there's a couple of different pieces to that. When it comes to charter enrollment, there are no traditional, what we would consider attendance boundaries for charter schools. So the attendance boundary is the state of California. So any student that shows up at a charter school, even if they live 100 miles away, if that charter school has space, that charter school is required to enroll that student. When it comes into where the preferences come into play is when the school is at capacity capacity, and they have to do a random lottery drawing for their spaces. By Ed Code provisions, and these were revised July 1, 2018, there are preferences that the school can lay out. There's some that they're required to have, like for instance, they are required to include a preference for students who reside within the authorizer's boundaries. So there's a little bit of a skeletal framework when it comes to preferences. You know, they can't be discriminatory in practice or on their face. And the schools largely can vary their preferences. The most common thing we see is that in order of preferences, it's siblings get preference. So if one student in the family is enrolled, the siblings will get a priority for enrollment. Children of staff and or founding board members with some limitations. Per federal guidance, there's a limit on that. Usually most schools cap it at 10% because they're not supposed to take up too many spaces. And then there are various preferences depending on what the charter school wants, what they're seeking for their student enrollments. Some of them, in order to qualify, like for co-op, they didn't have this in their charter, but to qualify for SB 740 reimbursements, they are required to have some language in there giving preference to students attending the closest elementary school or residing within those boundaries. Some schools also give a preference to military families and students of military families. So there's some discretion within the preference and the preference order.
So a charter school can decide whether or not to give priority to the children at the nearest school?
Yes, so if they want to, if they have, co-op is odd because they're on a district site and yet they can qualify for some SB 740 funding. SB 740 typically would be reserved for schools on private sites, but co-op put in some portables that they lease on their own. And they put them on the district property. So they are trying to qualify for the SB 740 reimbursement for those 4 portables, which they would qualify. And so, yeah, the schools, when you're trying to get into the SB 740 eligibility categories, there's 2 ways to qualify. You either serve a student population that is 55% FRPM, or you physically locate within the boundary of an elementary school that is 55% or higher. And so the Linda Vista site, the elementary school boundary is Linda Vista Elementary, which has a high percentage, and the Emerson Bandini site is the other qualifying site. So to get SB 740 eligible, they have to include these preferences in their charter.
And then a completely different preference, but like, doesn't Price open to first-generation students whose parents have not gone to college, so they're allowed to make that distinction?
Yes, so within their preferences, their first preference, they redid them when they renewed, and forgive me, I'm not sure if I have them in the right order off the top of my head, but I believe their first preference is students of families whose parents have not graduated from college and are low income. They're below a certain economic percentage. And then I believe the second preference is now sibling priority, and then I believe it goes to all other SD, USD resident students.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Thank you. Other discussion? Again? Michael? Okay, then let's vote. And it passes 5-0. Thank you. And we'll move on to item E1. Thank you. A second.
You have 1 speaker on it.
And we have 1 speaker, okay. There's no staff presentation, so the 1 speaker, you have 3 minutes.
It's pretty dry stuff when you're looking at the school boards and board policies, but they're really important. One of the things I don't like seeing in there is that it says that the staff can direct complainants to another department. And I've seen staff that have redirected parents that are complaining about issues that do fall under the uniform complaint to another to another department. And that needs to be clarified in there that, that they can't do that. It happened to me. I filed a complaint under the uniform complaint, and I was told that it wasn't a uniform complaint. I appealed to the California Department of Education, and they came back and said, yes, it is a uniform complaint. That needs to go into the policy so that parents know that if the district tells them, no, it's not a uniform complaint, they know they can appeal it to the California Department of Education so they can be sure that, that they were informed correctly. And the second thing is, this is the pupil fees complaint process. A lot of parents don't know that they can file a uniform complaint about illegal pupil fees, and it's happening all the time. And I also want it to be clear in the policy that it can be an anonymous complaint. Parents just need to attach the receipts and things that they had to pay for that they shouldn't have been required to, but they're afraid. They don't want their child to be singled out, so that should be in the policy as well, that parents can file a pupil fees complaint and they don't have to do it under their name. They can do it anonymously.
Thank you. That's it. Any board discussion on it? Please vote. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Item E2, development of the 2019-2020 budget.
I move approval. Staff recommendation.
Second from Mr. Barrera. Let us bring forth staff this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. Tonight, we're going to be asking the board to approve the resolutions to eliminate specific certificated and classified staff. The resolutions put before the board for consideration tonight will allow the district to prepare our balanced budget for the 19-20 school year. The impacts and effects of these position eliminations may be subject to negotiations with the district's bargaining units. The elimination of the positions is never an easy decision, as we know. However, in order to ensure the district maintains its strong fiscal position in the coming school year, we must work with within our limited means. Some of the eliminations within this item tonight are a result of central office department and school level decisions based on the needs of our students. Other eliminations are due to the end of grant funding. At its January 22nd, on our January 22nd, 2019 meeting, the board asked staff to consider a targeted approach for any of our future budget reductions, as opposed to across-the-board cuts through tools like a reduced work year. So for all of these reasons, the reductions outlined in this item are focused and limited as you requested. Our Chief Business Officer, Greg Ottinger, will begin by providing a brief overview of the budget, and then our Chief Human Resources Officer, Acacia Thede, will provide an overview of the impacts to district employees.
Good evening, President Whitehurst-Payne, Vice President Dr. Evans, trustees, superintendent, audience. We appreciate you allowing my colleague and I the opportunity to bring forth these recommendations on behalf of staff. As you will note, the budget aspect of this presentation is quite short, considering in 1 week we'll be bringing, our team will be bringing forth to the board the full second interim financial report. So with that, the balance of the time here will be spent with human resources. However, we wanted to remind everyone where exactly we are in the budget development timeline, which leads us here. We do have all the site information based on the site-based budgets, which is, as the superintendent mentioned, where these decisions are rooted. We will be bringing forward the second interim, and we also have the March 15th deadline for the notices. So with that, we wanted to just remind one area we wanted to highlight in terms of the budget as we continue to focus on school site stability, the preservation of school site budgets. We did want to just highlight the increase for Title I sites. We did want to increase the action the board took earlier in the year to increase Title I site funding. We also wanted to remind everybody of some potential shifts. As mentioned, we do have the second interim report next week. We will upcoming have the governor's May revise once the discussions have taken greater shape in Sacramento. And as always, we are looking at, we're calculating based on enrollment changes. So with that, again, second interim report coming in a week, and I would like to turn the remainder of the time over to my colleague, our chief, Acacia Thede.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Ottinger. Tonight will be another opportunity for us to share our commitment to ensuring we have the staff in place in order to meet the needs of our students. I've been before the board a few times this year in a request to discuss the impacts of previous layoffs. And tonight's conversation, you'll hear many of the things that I've shared before, which is we don't like to do layoffs. It's not something that we want to do, but in times when there are changes and a lack of funding, we have to live within our means. And so in order for us to ensure that we have what we need for our students, we have to make shifts each year. So what you see today for approval is the elimination of positions to ensure that we can make shifts in response to students. For instance, one of the things that you'll see on the certificated item is an elimination of a Spanish credentials. And one might think, well, why are you eliminating Spanish? Isn't Spanish a difficult area to staff? And the reason the elimination is there is because it's in response to what students need at schools. So we have a commitment to ensuring we have A through G requirements. When we did the master scheduling this year, the totality of individuals who need Spanish credentials, we have more individuals currently employed with us who hold that credential than is needed for the upcoming master schedule. And so you'll see in the PKS item that there's a reduction in those credential areas. But what I also want to remind everyone is that between now and the end of the school year, many things happen that affect this. There are retirements, there are resignations, there are promotions, and other changes. Unfortunately, we're tied to the statutory timeline to issue these notices and to stay in compliance with the timelines that are set in place as protections of people. We do have a commitment to students' needs first, and we know that that can sometimes affect an individual. The decisions that you see here are not district directed, but are based on information and decisions that are made by school sites, by departments, and the end of a grant. Following our January 22nd meeting, as Superintendent Martin said, we were directed to have not across-the-board solutions, but to have focused and limited cuts, and that's what we're presenting tonight. When we look at the employee impacts, there are a total of 97 FTE, full-time equivalent, listed in the PKS. This means the number of FTE is no longer needed in these credential areas across the district. However, this does not mean 97 individuals will lose their jobs. Employees impacted by the PKS will be able to bump into other credential areas. Many of our credentialed staff in the district hold more than one credential. That allows them to, rather than being laid off, allows them to be placed into another assignment. The actual number of layoff notices as of today is 37, 33 SDA and 4 AASD, and the breakdown is there for you. And again, once the notices are issued, there are changes that happen that will only decrease these numbers. When we look at the impacts on the classified individuals, you'll see that we have a breakdown by bargaining unit. Of the positions listed above, the impact to people, as of right now, with our best information that we have, is that there will be a total of 27 employees who will be completely laid off. There will be 65 employees that will bump within the same classification. There'll be 11 employees that will bump into their former classification. If you're doing the math, that leaves 13 left, and what that means is those are vacancies, so there's not a person impacted. What you don't see in this chart is the number of positions that would be added in the upcoming year. When I began talking, I started talking about shifts and living within our means. And so what that means is there's a total of 116 positions on this slide. What we are adding and what you don't see is that there's approximately 112 positions that were both added for the upcoming year. And that means that, as we discussed with certificated staff, the elimination of positions means that we need a different type of position. So with the credential holders, we need a different type of credential. For other staff, we need different types of staff. It means the school and department-based decisions were to have chosen to fund a different type of position based on the needs of the site. And again, I want to reiterate, this is a long time between now and the end of the year. Anytime that there are resignations, retirements, leaves of absence, even promotions, this will reduce the numbers that you see here. The next thing that is important to discuss is that we are looking at our ECE program. So school-based preschool centers are growing at a faster rate than our remaining 4 CDC programs. As a reminder, we run 2 different types of programs. We have a pre-K for all that is throughout the district, and we have a limited program under child development centers. Historically, those centers are difficult to be qualified for, and it's because they have restrictive placement that allows only certain types of individuals to qualify for them. In 2017, we began a transition to school-based campus preschool programs, which include a push to enroll more students in the programs that allow or that have least restrictive enrollment requirements. What this slide explains is a sunsetting of the CDC programs over the next 2 years. So the slide shows you that there are 4 programs remaining as of the 18-19 school year. We will sunset the program through as students matriculate into TK and K programs within our schools. So for next year, there are 49 students at Walker, 29 at Wegeforth, 42 at Euclid, and 39 at Colonel Solomon. It means that we will keep 1 classroom each at the top 2 schools and 2 classrooms each at the bottom 2 schools for next year. The prior year, those students who are in the Walker and Wegeforth classrooms will move into the school-age programs, and then the students who remain at Euclid and Colonel Solomon will be there 1 more year, and then the following year, they will be in the school-age program. So we are taking care of our kiddos to make sure that they have, they aren't disrupted. New students enrolling would be enrolled in our preschool programs throughout the district. And again, as with the other slides, any changes in retirements, promotions, things like that will potentially change the numbers that you see in the item for elimination. The last thing that I wanted to highlight, sometimes we don't share as much, and I want to take an opportunity to talk about the number of supports that we provide employees. The first is something that I may not always explain well as I sit up here on the dais, but as an organization, there are continued opportunities for employment of people. A layoff does not mean that people necessarily go without work. In addition to, earlier I stated that 27 classified employees may be completely laid off, it still means that they can work as substitutes. So there are still even work abilities after that.
Please be respectful.
The next thing that we offer are informational meetings so that individuals can find out accurate and timely information. One of the things that we also do is if people cannot take the information, if they cannot attend the meeting, if they have questions after the meeting, we have resources available on our website. For instance, the FAQs are there. This year, we're going to add something that we have not done in the past, which is an internal promotion workshop that will assist employees with things like resume review or career coaching opportunities. That's new and something different that we will offer to people. It'll be volunteer, but we'll feel like it's a service that we could offer to folks. We are going to continue to partner to offer people financial planning, including access to unemployment if needed, or at least an understanding of it if it would get to that point. We continue to have an employee assistance program available to all of our employees, and in some cases, there is an offer of a continuation of benefits. So how we treat our employees during this difficult time matters. As an employee who is being affected by this, it never feels good. But there are ways that we do support employees as they go through this process.
Thank you on the presentation. Now we have speakers, and we'll give you your opportunity to comment. How many speakers?
About 12 speakers.
Okay, 12, 1 minute each. Please call all of the names and have them come forward. Thank you.
All right, speakers on E2, Sabrina Hanlon, Michael Brayette, Leticia Mungia, Christina Capella, Miroslava Artiega, Brenda Mitchell, Lisa Cooper, Catherine Smart, Estelle Martinez, Rebecca Reynoso Luna, Debbie Beaver, Cecilia Mogica, Patty Sparks.
Thank you.
Hi, Sabrina Hanlon, proud employee and union member. 2 years ago, I was here begging you guys to prevent the loss of employees and also the permanent reduction of a work year. We were able to go back and work that out. I hope that maybe this is going to be the same case. I did some of my own investigating because I'm heartbroken by this. It impacts students, not only employees, but students. The 27 really hits me hard because, I'm a music person. Jimi Hendrix died at 27, Janis Joplin died at 27, Kurt Cobain died at 27. Kind of an ironic number there. I'd hate to see 27 employees feel like they're dying as well. I talked to a couple schools today. Miller Elementary. They're losing a library position that hasn't been filled for a while because they can't get anybody to come in and work the few hours that they have. Wow, that was a minute? Okay, well, I think you guys need to talk to these sites because what was said and what's going on at these sites is not quite accurate. They don't understand why they're losing a library. They got 755 kids. Who's going to run the library for them?
Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board President, Board members, Ms. Thede and Mr. Ottinger. My name is Catherine Smart, and I'm in the IT Division's Research and Evaluation Department. For your information, I recently initiated and completed the successful migration of the School Accountability Report Cards, or SARCs, from the old Word doc-based system method to the state's dashboard web portal. This new data system will save district resources going forward. Last Wednesday afternoon, the 27th, I was called into a meeting with my division head and my supervisor. I asked my OTBS chief job steward to join me. In this meeting, I was notified for the first time by any district staff of staffing changes, and that 2 positions, mine included, would be eliminated due to a small reorganization. I was expressly told by the IT division head that the position was not eliminated due to lack of funds or lack of work. However, tonight's board docs say it's due to lack of funds. I contacted the IT division head, but he informed me he's unfortunately unable to respond or be present tonight. Therefore, I respectfully ask that you consider tabling the IT reorganization positions elimination proposal pending a discussion with the IT division head regarding these discrepancies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members, superintendent. I'm going to make it fast. I don't want to argue with Acacia, so I'm going to let your agenda do it. So Acacia said that this is due to a lack of funds, and if you look at the letters each of the 3 CSEA units got, every single position says lack of funds. If you look at the board agenda in front of you, under the item background, the second paragraph, it says, and I quote, "Positive certification reflects the county's assessment we have sufficient funds in place to meet our financial obligation for the coming 2 years." The structural deficit that haunted the district for years has been eliminated. Most savings have come through decups to central office departments. Together, the board and staff have worked with our partners across the bargaining units to put every available dollar to work serving students, and this will continue focus. Does this continue that focus? It's a really abrupt turn. So here's what I have to say to you. Facts. Last year, our ending balance ended $8 million higher than we began.
Thank you.
That is not a lack of funds.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Every single year, we say we don't have money, and then it comes out in the unaudited actuals, and we did.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. I'm Brenda Mitchell, the president of the Paraeducator Unit. I don't have a speech other than to say how heavy my heart is, not knowing how the students are going to be, their well-being without some of the nursing services, the library services, and all the other services that we give out there. And, of course, the impacted people, how they're going to survive out there, especially in California where it's so expensive. Did sites send in the plan of how, without the services, what's going to be the plan? That's just the question in my mind. What's the plan for our students?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Christina Capella. I am the labor representative for Chapter 759 Paraeducators, and I have a few words to describe our paraeducators: compassionate, caring, dedicated, hardworking, and devoted. A few words to describe the layoff proposals in the face of revenue increases: dishonest, disgraceful, immoral, shameful, and unacceptable. We can all see this. Stop insulting our intelligence by saying the only way to balance your budget and serve our students is to destroy the livelihood of classified employees. Our essential classified employees, our schools would fall apart without them. Never forget that.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Lisa Cooper. I'm the library tech at Point Loma High, and I'm the first vice president of the OTBS unit. Last year I came to you at the February 27th to 2018 board meeting regarding Patrick Henry High School library closing. We were all informed by the superintendent at the time that the position was being redesigned. What that ended up meaning is that the library is only open when someone schedules with the admin assistant of the school for the school clerical assistant to go get the books, take them to her desk, and then check them out from the office. The library is not open. OTBS was notified in December that Patrick Henry High School was to hire a .5 library tech. Woohoo! We were also notified that Lincoln High School has had the library tech 2 list to choose from since December. Longfellow has had a substitute library tech all year. Obviously, there's a list to choose from. What gives?
Thank you.
Good evening, board, staff, and superintendent. My name is Izzy Martinez. I'm a special ed behavior technician at Erickson, and I'm the para unit first VP. We Classified are here to help San Diego students every single day to grow in their skills, motivate them, create curiosity, and build resiliency. But all too often, we're the first to be cut. Why? Do the students not need child development centers? Do they not need their health techs, their guidance assistants, their library assistants, their special education paraeducators? Yes, they do. How can we be as competitive or even more enticing than charters that we just heard about if we can't spark curiosity with the bare minimum? We are definitely building resilient kids to know that they won't always have what they need, but it's a shame. It's a really, really, real bad shame that you guys are doing this.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, Leticia Munguia, Field Director with the CSCA office here in San Diego and Imperial County. I come to you on behalf of our CSCA members, and today we have an opportunity to highlight how broken San Diego Unified is. We have districts in this room that represent the majority of Northern California: North County, San Diego, East County, San Isidro, South Bay, Southwestern College. And the work that you're doing here today, we've been lied to at the table. Michael Briette shared with you the letters that were presented to the 3 units. They're inaccurate. They're falsely stating what the status of this resolution is that's before you. 2 years ago, I came to this podium and I told you that your HR department had not been accurate in the representation to you at the time. I'm here to repeat the same to you again today. It is not okay that you're laying off 1, 2, 10, 15, 27, or 37. Going through this motion of moving papers and moving numbers. These are human beings that deserve to be respected on the job. And you have that duty.
Thank you.
As elected officials, you have that duty. And I ask you to send your team back and do the work and figure out where the money is. Our students deserve better.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Miroslava Arteaga, and I'm a preschool teacher for the Early Childhood Education Program. I'm here to discuss the phasing out of the child development centers and the background information listed in your agenda item details, where it says that families have found the services and placement of child development centers too restrictive to meet their needs. That information, it's not accurate. I've been a child development center teacher for the past 18 years, and we have always been fully enrolled. So that shows that parents are allowed to enroll to have their children in a facility that serves 12 months out of the year. However, the district is claiming that parents are saying that they were not willing to enroll their children based on whatever information you got this from. In addition to that, they're claiming that a transition into a school-based preschool has been successful. However, they have not offered any solution for parents who need 12-month services because they work 12 months out of the year, not only 10 months. Yes, you're offering them a placement in a school-based preschool. However, my question is, what solution are you offering working low-income families who need services 12 months in a year? You're not offering anything.
Thank you.
So this information that the agenda item details has in regards to the background, it's not accurate. It's a lie. Because child development centers have been fully enrolled for the past 40-plus years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good evening, board members. My name is Rebecca Reynoso, and I'm also a teacher. I've also been a lead teacher and also been an administrator for the San Diego Unified School District. Presently, I work at Euclid CDC in City Heights. I have worked for the district for over 30 years, more specifically, the Early Childhood Program. I'm working with families in the community, and I have been exposed to the popular opinion among our parents that we serve. They need 12 months support. The families at the child development centers are hardworking parents and full-time students and parents of low-income community. Upon receiving some information on budget cuts for our program, there have been several references to parent need and concerns about 12-month support. My experience with the program leads me to question the district's findings. They're lying. The truth is, parents do need a program like ours. It has worked for the past 75 years. We need the future of our program that is so necessary. Nothing is more accurate than working directly in the classroom and seeing how our 12-month program has served an abundance of families in the greater San Diego community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next.
Hello, board members. I am here to give a testimony about Euclid Child Development. I am a full-time student and working as well. When Mia started Euclid Child Development, she only can speak two letters per word sentences. She has been grown tremendously. They work with her one-on-one. She gets speech therapy. If you ask me if she loves school, every morning she says, "Mommy, I want to go to school." And thanks to the wonderful teachers, the one-on-one, the 12 months out of the year, I have a peace of mind that my daughter is progressing and moving along, and that she loves school, to me, is priceless. And I hope that you guys change your heart and have Euclid and the other child development still open, because there's a lot of kids like Mia that are going to be coming into your schools. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Next.
Good evening. My name is Patty Sparks, and this is Silva. I am the chapter president for Grossmont Cuyamaca Community College District, and this is our chapter president from Southwestern. I have to just take a moment, and I understand there's a lot of passion here, because what I see is I'm not seeing that you're understanding what classified staff do for your children. They don't just clean your toilets and turn on the lights and make sure that the computers are working or whatever their job is. They interact with students all day long. And it could be that one classified person that could change the life of a child, because we don't have, our classrooms are impacted. You take away more staffing, you're taking away more hope for these children, and it's unacceptable. When they come to us, at the college level, our assessment offices, we're having to regroup our whole entire way we're teaching our college students, because when we get them, they're not educated enough, and when you take away from them, you're taking away from their futures, even now. I'm asking you to
thank you.
I wrote something down this time. All right, Deb Beaver, chapter president, OTBS, but more importantly, union member. So really quickly, just a few things I wrote down. There's no dollar amount savings listed anywhere. I can't tell you how many emails I got asking what is the financial savings from these cuts. You're adding more positions. I heard Acacia say that in the end, you'll be adding back positions, right? Over 100. So it brings to mind repurposing. My people, my members, our work being repurposed. And I have to wonder what that means. Cheaper employees? I bet. Or maybe more expensive employees with some more managers. I can't tell you how many times I've seen it on board docs. More managers, higher pay, equity raises. I'd like some equity raises. How about you guys?
Thank you. Is that it? Thank you all. Now, board members, for some discussion. Thank you. You may be seated. Discussion?
I just have a couple quick questions. So you had said that there was going to be 112 additions, and so then how many are you asking the board to lay off? And then what's the difference between those that you're laying off and the new positions?
The request in the item is to issue the 97 PKS and the 116 classified eliminations. Those are the two requests.
Okay. And then I did have a quick question about the early childhood education program. So will we as a school district will still continue to have early childhood education through a different model, the preschool programs, which is a more site-based or a school-based early childhood education program. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so what's going to happen to the children that are currently enrolled in these CDC classes? Will they be kicked out, or what's going to happen next year?
The children who are currently enrolled will stay enrolled in the program until they age out.
Okay, so they're kind of grandfathered in, and the
Yes.
programs will continue?
Yes.
And then what about upcoming newer children that are like 3 years old? What's going to happen for those children in terms of early childhood education opportunities?
So we will allow them space, like we do in all programs, into our preschool programs. So we, as I shared earlier, and what we've talked about as a system, is that we're growing our preschool program. We believe in early childhood education, and we want to make sure that we continue to build and grow in those programs.
Okay. And then what about the difference between the 12-month service and the 10-month service? So if the preschool programs that we're offering for upcoming children as they get older is 10 months, what kind of things are we looking at in terms of helping fill the gap?
So we would work within our partners to find what families need. So it just depends on what the families need.
Okay, so what if a family needs something for their child for those 2 months? Are there some other entities or organizations that we could partner with or something like that, or not?
Yes.
Okay. And then you...
Excuse me, we were respectful and we listened to you. Let's do the same to them.
So you had mentioned that there was a grant that was ending also as a challenge with funding for various positions. What's the grant and how much money is that?
It's a very small portion of this, but we are a contractor for the San Diego County of Health and Human Services. They provide us with funding to perform certain services.
And then the county is taking that grant away.
The county controls how and why we can spend the money.
Okay.
And so they also dictate the types of positions that we can have. So in the renewal, we have to, because we serve as the contractor for that agency, we must comply with the types of positions that they have told us that we can spend the money on.
Okay. Also, it said here that some of the folks have mentioned that some libraries will be closing next year because the schools are no longer going to be funding library texts or anything like that. How accurate is that?
So the decisions that were made by the sites were done at the site level. And so there were a couple mentioned that...
Like Miller, SCPA, Henry.
So I don't have the specifics of those, but my understanding is that sites still have access to centralized support for library services.
Okay, so what you're saying is, for example, back I believe in 2014, the board voted for the central office to at least make sure every library was open a minimum of 1 day a week in all the elementary schools, and so that's going to continue?
Yes, it has continued.
Okay, all right.
Excuse me.
Okay, so then also when I look at the paraeducators, there's 81 fewer paraeducators, and I know that a large chunk of those are vacancies. Oh, shoot. Okay, here it is. 32 are vacant positions, and 49 are filled positions. So, everybody on the board, I can only speak for myself, but from my understanding over the years is that everybody on the board knows the role of a paraeducator and helping to support teachers in the classroom and help students. And I know that this is kind of a loaded question, but I'm trying to understand, do we just have less of a need? Is that why we're going to have 81 fewer paraeducators? Or help me understand the decision here and its effects on the services for the students. Do we not have the need? Do we have the need?
So one of the things that is part of this conversation is a fact that we all know that we have declining enrollment. We also have changes that have to happen because of the needs of students. And so there are factors that then require us to have changes in response to the needs of our students. So what I think is why I discussed it this year in a way that I have not discussed before is that when you When you are living in a system that we do, where we don't have adequate funding, where we don't have trillions of dollars that we can spend in ways that we would like to, we have to make choices about the types of positions that we have. Under Ed Code, if you are performing a certain type of, so let me clarify. Under Ed Code, all of our classified employees must have a specific job description with the duties and everything very specifically designed. If the needs change, and then that requires a different kind of position, you have to make sure that you have the appropriately qualified, classified, I should say, not qualified, the appropriately classified position to ensure that you're providing the services that are required.
So help me to understand this, and I don't know if Cindy wants to chime in or not. So is what you're saying is that the need of the students is such that, and this might speak to the 112 positions that you're recommending that we add. So you're suggesting that we need a different kind of classified individual to support those students than the paras? Is that, help me understand that.
So there are a mix of paras to be added, of OTBS to be added, of OSS positions to be added. There are a mix of positions to be eliminated, and there are a mix of positions to be added. So in order to make those changes, the board actually has to take an action to eliminate them so that we can add. If we don't eliminate, we can't add.
So we want to eliminate paras, and then what do we want to add?
Not just paras.
Okay,
right.
I think...
But I'm just trying to understand the work of the 81 para positions that we're going to have fewer. So the 81 para positions would you said we have to get rid of those, so then we could add other positions in other areas, or other positions that would address the work of the paras?
Yes.
I think to clarify what's going on is, instead of us at the board saying we're going to cut X number of positions, now we have school sites making those decisions.
Yes, this is
allegedly. This is what we've assigned them to do, and they're looking at their student body with their particular needs at a given site, so that's not generic. It's specific to each individual site, and those requests then bubble up to you.
Yes.
And then you put all of this together. This is what I'm understanding.
This is what we do. We take what comes from SBB. I'm sorry, excuse me. We have a strong site-based decision-making process. They have stakeholders at each site. They have groups that provide input from the staff and parents. Those decisions they also, let me underscore this because it's important, each school in this district, everybody who works here is responsible for ensuring that mission statement happens. Part of that is our commitment to A through G. We have to make course selections, course offerings, credential holders have to match all of those things. So in addition to site-based decisions when it comes to specifically classified positions, there are groups of decision makers at the site who make those decisions. When it comes to the certificated PKS, that is driven by, again, student need based on the master's schedule. So in order to ensure that the right number of folks in the right classifications or credentials are in place, we have to be able to eliminate positions so that the funding is available to staff the appropriate number. We aren't in a position where we can keep staff that don't hold the right credential, for instance, like the Spanish example that I gave earlier before.
And that's an important example, the Spanish, because Spanish is a single subject.
Correct.
Which means that you're qualified to teach only Spanish at a secondary, it could be K through 12.
It could be K through 12.
Primarily at a secondary school.
And what we have, for example, of things that are growing are immersion programs in our middle level and elementary level. So the need has changed from maybe needing more single subject people, let's say in middle and in high school, to B-clad credentialed people in elementary and middle school, or a combination at middle level of people who need 2 credentials. So we have our commitment to the programs and the services, but it looks different because of the either credential or licensing or classification requirements that we have as a district. And when I talk about this, it sounds very clinical, very bureaucratic, and but we all know that it impacts the folks who are sitting in the office, in the audience, or folks who they represent. And that's why I say it's not an easy decision. If I could sit here and not do this conversation, I would be happy not to have it. If we could give as many people a job as completely possible, we would do that. And we work incredibly hard. The teams that do this work do it with compassion. The teams that do this work do not sleep and work for months to make sure that the work that we're doing is accurate. We are not perfect, but if we didn't care, we wouldn't take care. And that's enough.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and vote.
Sure. So
I'll make a couple comments.
Okay. John,
I mean, obviously, in years past, we've dealt with massive layoffs, and that's not what we're doing this time. I think in the past, the HR is also, if we had 100 positions eliminated, we would give 300 notices just to see how it all fell out once everyone went to different positions. And you've very surgically taken it that, even when you're eliminating positions, you're actually giving, in most cases, fewer layoff notices than the number of positions that are being eliminated. But on the other hand, on the human side, if one person loses their job, talking about numbers and budgets and so forth is pretty meaningless, because a person is losing a job. And I know you care about that, which is why you were pointing out, if we face that, what are the possible things? First of all, looking to see if, in the meantime, if somebody retires or moves away, and putting them in position, looking, can someone be trained for another position, every possible way to try to work with them. But what we have to do every year is make adjustments based on what the needs are. And it's been said over and over, but I think it's really important that we didn't sit up here and say, okay, let's eliminate a certain number of classified employees, and let's eliminate a certain number of certificated employees, and let's take a chunk here and a chunk there. We sent the budget books out to the schools, and we said to the principals, you need to sit down with your people, not you, the principal, alone, but your teachers, your staff, your classified employees, your parents, your different councils that you have, and you need to decide, with the amount of money that you have in your school budget, what you're going to do. Now, obviously, at the high school level, which is what you said, but I'm just repeating it, at the high school level, the students are choosing which courses they want to take. So if more students are choosing to take computer science than ceramics, you can't say, well, we're going to just continue employing that ceramics teacher when we need to go out and hire another computer science teacher. So I know it's really complicated, but I know one of the things that people brought up, and I thoroughly understand it. We're saying it's not a budget solution, but that it's just making these adjustments. But when they see the statement, lack of funds, well, the truth is, it is lack of funds because we only have enough money for the positions that the schools have selected to have. And then we have a few outliers, and that's where the problem is, that don't fit into what the schools have decided. And so that's the hard part about the lack of funds. And we could go on forever about how, like you said, in general, we just don't have enough funds in our school. But we always have to adjust to what do the students want to take. We have to adjust to how many students we have. If we have 1,000 fewer students one year, that's millions of dollars less of money, and we have to figure out how to do it within that. And I know that you are in an extremely difficult position, and one of the things that happens is we can't allow our district to get into situations that other districts, another district at least, in the area has gotten into in terms of promising more than they could deliver. So this is the painful point at this point, but I know that based on last year, every week, every month, you kept looking at every person, every position, every possible thing to try to recoup as many of the people as possible. I know you're going to continue to do that. So
We will.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to acknowledge both you and Greg for the difficult position you're in and the difficulty it is that we have being a very large school district with, close to 15,000 employees and with a budget of $1.4 billion. Seems like there ought to be enough money to go around to keep everybody employed. But then there comes times when we have like 90% of our budget is dedicated to personnel benefits, and we have the retirement piece coming in. And as I understand it, just to stay even, we need to bring in $40 million a year just to take care of keeping it status quo. So there always is this quest to identify funding. And as I understand it, this is not a budget solution. This really is driven by our local schools and the schools making decisions about what they need and what they would like to have. These numbers, as Dr. Evans mentioned, are then percolate up, and I think President Whitehurst Payne also said that these are numbers then that you pull together, and then we have this outcome. So I think there's a number of the questions that I thought came up tonight from the people who spoke was, where do the numbers come from? What does the decision, why does the decision need to be made now? I think there was a request for us to consider tabling. And then the final question, it seems to be the impact and relationship this has with the budget building process, as well as HR, as well as negotiation. So maybe just remind us and the people listening and here, where did the numbers come from?
So the data comes from the site-based budgeting process. Those are, for easy description, it's an electronic system that we use to predict the budget for the upcoming year. Sites get an allocation of funds and staff. They allocate that based on the factors that I discussed earlier, master schedule, services in the school. And then what they add and eliminate is presented to us to implement the contractual rules for displacement and the calculation of the particular kinds of service action that's presented before you tonight.
So then just to be clear, this is not a decision that's being forced on our schools by the district.
In years past, we have made decisions to say we will eliminate X, Y, and Z position in order to find a budget savings. That was not part of the work this year.
So now that we have a positive certification, which is the second time in 2 years, which was the first time in, I think, 8 years, we want to make sure we maintain positive certification for all kinds of reasons. So we need to make decisions within our budget constraints. So, so the second question, why do we need to make this decision tonight?
The reason that we need to make the decision tonight is to ensure that we can properly notice all of, Greg's going to flip back to our timeline. In order that we meet the statutory timelines for noticing individuals, the work to notice people is manual. We do not do that work ahead of time. We wait for the authority from the board to make those determinations. We then have to notice individuals of their statutory rights. We have to notice each individual group differently because certificated is different than classified. Classified has a number of different options that have to happen. There's a timeline that goes in place for them, and they need information as soon as possible. So to delay this would not enable us to meet the statutory deadline, and it would delay the information that would get to individual employees.
And that basically answered my last question, which is, what is the impact of this decision we're making tonight on the budget building process and the HR and with negotiations? It seems to me as well, as we've progressed in doing, taking these actions, which is something we have to do every year because of the way the timelines we have, but it's also emphasizes the importance of us having clarity with our employees, building trust with our employees, and developing transparency so that our employees and their negotiating teams have the information. What do we do to ensure or to expand and build on that trust?
So in our process, for instance, the processes that we have, they're very, they're guided by statute and contract. And so the process can be and is transparent from everything from an individual employee who's impacted to the impact to a unit. So there is information that is required to be shared, and there's information that we share on top of that. Because the information talks about an individual person, there are limited ways that we share that information. So for instance, a president and a labor rep would get different information than the mass individuals would get. So, but we work to make sure that people have what they need and to stay in communication.
And that was I guess the importance of this slide 10, which is employee support.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you're continuing to do that.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. If there's no more discussion, please vote. And that passes 4-1 with Mr. Beiser. I'm voting no. Thank you all. And that moves us to non-agenda.
Yes, you have one speaker.
Public testimony, and we have one speaker.
One speaker for non-agenda citizen. Is she still?
3 minutes.
Okay, so the superintendent consent agenda seems to be an item that Superintendent Cindy Martin will sneak things by the public. And you guys approved $83,000 to hire a lobbyist in Sacramento. Now, the San Diego County Grand Jury found that it is illegal to expend educational funds for political purposes. That $83,000 that you allocated for this lobbyist is education money, and it shouldn't have been spent that way. It's so much so that you have to report it to the Fair Political Practices Commission, and that's politicking. Now, it's the mismanagement of the superintendent of the money that's causing these problems. But Barrera wants to keep going back to the pocketbook of the people that pay taxes to get more money. And it seems that no matter how much money you get, and every year, you saw the chart that young man was showing. Every year, there's an increase in money, millions and millions and millions more, every year since 2013 that the superintendent took over. And yet, here we are looking at the budget and cutting people's jobs. So I don't want to see things as important as a parcel tax and hiring lobbyists to do political lobbying, and that money being spent. That $83,000 could have been used to save people's jobs. Don't do this sneaky sneak. It's not what we voted you to do. So stop with the sneaky sneak. Go back and look at your numbers. We have 2 math teachers on the board, and you can't figure out the math. I just don't understand how you can have 2 math teachers on the board and you can't figure out the math. And the only math that Barrero wants to do is just to continue to increase taxes on our backs. That shouldn't be happening. Don't put it on the consent agenda. Put it out there where the people can see what you're really doing.
Thank you. And the next regular meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 12th, 2019. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming.